Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Chuck Prentner. I am one of the franchise development directors with Right at Home. Joining me today is Patti Walter. She is a franchisee in Northern Colorado. So what we're going to do today is just spend a few minutes finding out about Patti and her business and what has her part of Right at Home. Patti, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for asking me.
To give it a little context, if you could, tell me a little bit about where your location is and how did you become a Right at Home franchisee?
Well, we are located in the beautiful Northern Colorado, and my territory is Larimer and Weld County, so I do have a large geographical area. My husband and I purchased Right at Home in April of 2013. It was a resale. I started looking for a business due to interviewing and deciding that I wanted to be an owner. I wanted to be my own supervisor, and I wanted to put that money in my pocket instead of somebody else's pocket. So when we found Right at Home, to me, it was a perfect match because of the mission statement, improving the quality of life for those we serve. I started my career working at the Humane Society for Larimer County. I started as a kennel attendant when I was a senior in high school. I got that job as HERO, which is Home Economics Related Occupations. It was a 2-year program at Poudre High School. In my senior year, I was lucky enough to start at the Humane Society, where I stayed and became the Humane Educator and continued with them for 5 years. At that time, I went to work for General Nutrition Center and became a senior store manager, where I traveled and moved to Montana for GNC and began opening up stores for them in that area. 14 years later, I decided to move back to my hometown of Fort Collins. And at that time, I became an employment counselor recruiter. And I did that for 7 years. At that time, I decided it seemed like I had a 7-year itch. Okay, I always wanted to change after 5 or 7 years and get some more experience underneath my belt. At that time, I decided I wanted to become a medical assistant. I had a sister-in-law that passed away at 40, and one of the things she told me is, if there is something that you want to do, go do it now, okay, because you might be limited. So I became a medical assistant and worked for 7 years at a chronic pain management. Due to the death of my dad, I decided that I had needed to quit my employment and spend some time with my mom and closing out the farm. She was left with 700 acres of working farm in August in Nebraska. 2 years later, after helping her and getting her settled, I started looking for a job. And then I realized I wasn't looking for a job anymore. I wanted a career. I wanted to own something. And I went home one day after interviewing all day long and just not being happy with what was out there. And I put in on the internet, businesses for sale in Fort Collins, and Right at Home came up. So that's how I got to Right at Home.
That is quite a journey. So now you had mentioned your husband. Is he part of the business? Does he have something else that he does? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
So I'm a little unusual because my husband is not part of the business. He is in construction. He's a field superintendent and does both commercial and residential. So I am the agency manager and face of Right at Home in Northern Colorado.
Now, when you were looking at getting involved with Right at Home, was he involved in the investigation process?
Oh, he was totally involved in the investigation process because I took his 401k and rolled it over and bought the business. So I had to get his permission and his life savings to purchase Right at Home. And a year later, I asked him, "Are you happy that we bought Right at Home?" And he said yes. And then I asked him, "Did you think I was going to succeed?" And this is one of the things that I think all owners and all new franchisees need to realize, is that if they reach out to corporate and get that support, they will succeed with their business.
That kind of leads me to my next question. What part of support from Right at Home provides the most value to you? I mean, if you were to look at all the support, you just mentioned it, what do you get the most value from?
Their systems. I mean, they've been doing this for years. And at the time we purchased the business, one of the things my husband said is corporate's not going to let you fail. They want you to be successful. So you pay your royalties, you pay your brand fund, and they make money and you make money. If you use their experience, if you use their systems, if my orientation program is built totally on what corporate has for me. We add what the state needs, what the state requires, but corporate is always there. My regional director, talking to him every month, especially through the brutalness of the last 2 years with COVID, that is the only way I think I could have gotten through having the employees leave. It very stressful. But Todd was always there for me, even when I just needed to call on my way home and say, I just need to talk. Can I just talk to you? And if you reach out to corporate, if you ask them questions, they are there for you, but you have to reach out to them. I think that's the important part. I've seen a lot of people come and go, and they're not successful. And I do believe they're not successful because they don't take that experience and training from the corporate office and bring it into their office.
I think that's key, and you hit it right there. It is your business. I mean, you're part of a franchise, but it is your business. It's ultimately your responsibility to grow your business. Now, in that last comment you had, you mentioned various pieces of your day, whether you're talking to corporate or providing the state requirements for your employees or orientation. Patti, walk me through, if there is such a thing, a typical day. What does Patti do as a right-home franchisee on a daily basis?
So one of the reasons I love my business so much is in the morning when you get here, you really don't know what the day is going to be. There is no such thing as a typical day at Right at Home. As your business grows, you start working with lives, okay? Whether it be your client's life or your caregiver's life and their family and everybody. So at some point, you're going to be dealing with 100 lives a day. And in dealing with 100 lives a day, things come up. So you need to be energetic, multitasking, and realize that you may not get done what you thought you were going to get done with that day. Just doesn't happen.
So let me ask you. We're coming up next month on Home Improvement, our national conference where all of our franchisees and corporate staff and a lot of support people get together as well. And one of the things that we always do at Home Improvement is we have a major award given to a franchise office across the country. And we're all excited about what's going to be announced next month. What was announced last year that maybe applies to you and your team?
So one of the things corporate does is they have the franchisees nominate caregivers for the National Caregiver of the Year. I started participating in nominating caregivers for the National Caregiver for the Year in 2015. In 2016, I was lucky enough to win the West Region Caregiver of the Year with Heather Claus. Last year, I won the National Caregiver of the Year with Shirley Aydelotte.
Of the Caregiver of the Year, the entire system.
I have the top caregiver of over 20,000 employees nationwide. It is an experience that is unbelievable. To share that gratification that you have as an owner for an employee that's worked hard. And this individual started with Right at Home in 2007 when this office first opened. So she has been with Right at Home longer than I have. And one of the things that nominating Caregiver of the Year does for the office in the fall when we start doing this is sometimes we dwell on too many things that have happened that aren't good. And when you start talking about caregivers and who you're going to nominate and why you're going to nominate them, it renews the energy in the office. It just, and then when you get to call them and tell them that you've nominated them, and then you have your dinner where you're just celebrating what they've done for the business. We would not be in business without our employees. And to win the National Caregiver of the Year for this office, it will be a shining star for years. I mean, it is, I cried. That's all I can say. I mean, I cried so many times through that whole process. It's very emotional.
I think that's just a complete salute to the culture that you and your team have been able to develop in your office there in Fort Collins. That's absolutely amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Just one last thing before we end the call. Patti, you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen the good and the bad, the rewards and the struggles. What is something or maybe a few things you would want to share with any prospective franchisee that may be viewing this to help them understand about Right at Home? Anything that maybe you wanted to know or you would like to share with someone looking at this podcast?
Home care is an exciting business to be in, and to have that opportunity to go in and hear all these stories with these seniors is totally amazing. And then when you get that perfect match with the caregiver and the client, and it just works, it's so heartwarming. And I'm going to share a perfect example of it. I have an individual, a gentleman with Parkinson's. Sometimes he can be very loud, and he's just trying to get people to understand what he wants. When we were first doing the home assessment and I was talking to the wife, I learned that he used to play in a band and he used to sing. And so as I'm driving back to the office, I started thinking about which caregiver I was going to put in with him. And I put Joelle. Joelle happens to be an individual that plays the guitar. 2 days ago, she came into my office and sat down in a chair and had a conversation with me about the changes of this client. It used to be when she would get there, he'd have the newspaper up in front of his face, no communication. But since they've started playing guitar and singing, it has turned his life around. I called his wife the other day and she said, I had to go up. I was in the basement doing my own thing, letting them play. But after an hour and a half, I had to go up and tell them how good they sound. So he's actually teaching her bluegrass and harmonizing. So that is what to me is so exciting about what we do when you have that perfect match, and we really do improve the quality of life for that senior.
Patti, you run a tremendous organization. You got a tremendous team. Thank you so much for spending this last 15 minutes with us. Hey, you make Right at Home what it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.